So I would like to say something more about the Alexander technique and what it is. FM, or Matthias Alexander, he's often referred to as FM. He was an actor in Australia who had a speech impediment or a voice impediment in a particular kind of way. In those days, what was popular was dramatic recitation or presentations, and at the peak of a dramatic moment, his voice would fail him. The question is saying to yourself, well, what's my responsibility in this situation, rather than going to someone to say, fix me. Began an exploration of what he was doing that was interfering with the natural functioning of his voice. And he was the kind of person who would actually sit or stand in front of a mirror for 10 years in self-observation of very subtle movements. He could see very clearly what he was doing eventually. It took a long time, but he gradually became clear there were very subtle undermining postural sets that he was doing at a certain moment when he wanted to make a point. He would pull back his head and shorten his neck and collapse his spine right here, and that would put pressure on his larynx and deflate the impulse of speaking at that moment. And it was something he could observe, but there was nothing he could do about it. He was powerless. And that was really the birth of the Alexander technique. He found a way to, at the very moment that he had the impulse to speak, for example, he would inhibit, that was his word, he would inhibit the actual doing of that speaking. And so therefore he would separate the impulse to speak from the actual speech. Long enough for the impulse to explore a better way of self-expression. Particularly the head to move forward and up from the spine rather than pull back, just the opposite, to allow the spine itself not to shorten on the neck but actually to lengthen, and for his whole upper chest and shoulders to widen. That would facilitate a fuller expression of what he wanted to say. And he created a set of orders, really counter orders, to countermand the habit. And the orders were, let my neck be free, to let my head go forward and up, to let my back lengthen and widen. And the purpose of those orders was to prevent the old habit from fulfilling itself at the very moment that he wanted to express himself. And he also noticed that in order to do that, even if the movement was from, say, a movement of his head here, or from his hand or something, he would need the body as a whole to move that. It wasn't just an isolated phenomena. To enable that expression to happen, it required an alignment of the whole self, the whole body, from head to toe. What he finally came to is that he could create the space for something to happen, but he would have to allow the body to do it. He created a set of orders to say to himself, so he occupied the brain's activity. Let the neck be free, let the head go forward and up, let the back lengthen and widen. That gave the body the space it needed and the suggestions, the general suggestions, for it to facilitate this kind of more expansionary flow in the body. Gendlin and his work called Focusing was the next great gift that was given to me. focusing, which is really about paying attention to something inside ourselves that is felt bodily in a physical way, but isn't exactly clear. There isn't the clarity of understanding. It's simply like a vague sense of something that you know is happening, that you know it's connected to your life, but you're not quite sure what that is. Gendlin was able to name that as a valid part of our human experience. And that was a tremendous gift to me at the time, because it began to explain some of the things that I had been going through that I had no words to express. The example of being on an Alexander table and feeling so alive inside, and the flow of energy moving through my body, and my body beginning to relax and to open up to itself. And suddenly having this information just become clear, this kind of sense of myself, with this kind of inner clarity of how my life might be, was such a remarkable experience. And Gendlin and Focusing have been able to give some context for that experience.